Hilchos Megillah v'Chanukah Perek Revi'i, the laws of Megillah and Chanukah, chapter 4. Yesterday we introduced the laws of Chanukah, the miracles behind the Chanukah story, why it is that we do the things we do on Chanukah, and we spend considerable time on Hallel, which is one of the obligations of Chanukah, saying Hallel every day. Today is Rosh Chodesh. We said Hallel today. We spoke about saying half Hallel yesterday. In this chapter, the Rambam moves on to the actual obligation of Chanukah, which is the Chanukah lights. How to go about the mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah menorah. And the Rambam begins, Halacha Aleph, Kama neiros hu madlik b'Chanukah. How many lamps does a Jew have to kindle on Chanukah? So, while today everybody knows the custom is on night one you light one candle, then you light two and three, etc. That is not the basic law. The basic mitzvah, says the Rambam, mitzvasa sheyiyeh kol bayis ubayis madlik ner echad. The mitzvah is that every night there should be one candle in every home. All 8 nights of Chanukah. As you see in the picture, just one candle on the table. That's it. Bein shahayu anshe abayis merubin, bein shalehayu bayala adam echad. Whether the household is big, there's 10 people in the household, there's only one. Doesn't matter. One candle per house per night. Then what's called the mehadrin, the people that are extra careful in mitzvahs, they beautify the mitzvahs. Madlik neiros kiminyan anshe abayis. You light one candle per person in the house. Ner l'chol echad ve'echad, one candle for each one. Bein anashim, bein nashim, both men and women. But you don't go up in the numbers. So if there's 4 people in the household, on night 1 you're going to have 4 candles in your house, and on night 2 you're also going to have 4 candles. There's no Chanukah. The whole idea of a Chanukah is in the next category. On the basic level of the mitzvah, and even on the mahadrin level of the mitzvah, all you have to have is 1 candle per person per night. So like this picture would be if you had a house with 3 people. Every night, this would be the same scene would repeat itself. Night 1, night 2, night 3, every single night, 1 candle per person. The person who is even more beautiful than this is what we call mehadrin min ha-mehadrin. You're the most beautiful of those that make beautiful, or more than those that make beautiful. You do the mitzvah in the most choice way. Madlik ner l'chol echad balayla harisha. You do 1 candle per person on the first night. And each night you add another candle per person. Keitzad, says the Rambam Halacha Beis, what would this look like? If there are to be 10 members in the household, on night number 1 there's going to be 10 candles lit in the home, 1 per person. On the second night there'll be 20. On night 3 there'll be 30. To the point that at night number 8, you're going to have 80 candles in your home. And this is what you see most commonly today. In the pictures here you can see, this is a family with a bunch of people in the home. This is the 8th night of Chanukah, and each person has 8 candles lit. Or this is in Jerusalem, where you have the menorahs outside the door. So each family member has a little step stool over here with the menorahs, and every step has another menorah over there per person. So that's the mehadrin min ha-mehadrin, the one who, the most beautiful mitzvah, they put 1 per person per night. It's fascinating. The Rebbe would always point out that in Jewish custom today, you never hear of anybody who does anything less than mehadrin min ha-mehadrin. Even the most non-religious, non-observant Jew, you give him a Chanukah menorah, what's he doing? He's doing the highest level mitzvah of Chanukah. Because Chanukah is that kind of a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah of lighting up the world. And so everybody is empowered to light up the world in the greatest way.
Yeah, Reform Hebrew School.
Yeah, doesn't matter. The Reform, the Conservative, everyone does this mitzvah, the mehadrin min ha-mehadrin. Fascinatingly though, the Rambam himself says, Halacha Gimel, minhag pashut b'chol areinu b'Sfarad, we had the widespread custom in our cities, in Spain, was kind of in between. Sheyiyu kol anshe abayis, madlikin ner echad balayla harishain. There was only 1 candle for all the members of the home on the first night, umaysifin v'hoilchin ner b'chol layla. And then they would add 1 candle per night, but only for the household. So on day number 8, there was 8 candles in the home. Whether it was a big household or a small one. So it's more than the mehadrin, because the mehadrin would just do 1 candle per person every night. This is 1 candle per household, so it adopts like the basic mitzvah, but that candle would add every night, so the maximum was 8. Yeah, the commentaries question why the Rambam adopts this kind of strange custom. It's neither here nor there. But as a matter of practice, as I said before, today we do the other way. We do the mehadrin min ha-mehadrin, where everybody lights and everybody adds every night. Halacha Dalet. Ner sheyesh lo shtei piyos. A lamp that has two openings. We've seen in the laws of Shabbat how they used to have those clay lamps. So this is actually a picture of an old Roman lamp, and you can see it has two openings. So the oil would go over here. This is where the fuel was stored. And then there would be a wick coming in here and a wick coming in here. So the Rambam says this type of a lamp, even though the source of fuel is equal for both, oila lishnei b'nei adam. It counts for two people. So for example, if they were one of the guys that used the mahadrin min ha-mahadrin, where everybody lit a candle. So this can count for two people. Mile ka'ara shemen v'hi kifa psilais. What if you filled up a bowl with oil and you put wicks all around? I couldn't find a picture of an oil bowl, but I found a picture of a candle. This is a wax candle with multiple wicks. Does this count for multiple people or not? What do you think?
I bet it would.
It would?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, so the Rambam says actually the candles have to be distinct enough from one another. Im kafa aleha kli. If you placed a vessel over it in a way that each wick now is coming out of its own little place, kol psilo nechsheves kener echad. And each individual wick will count as one lamp. Loi kafa aleha kli, but if it's just out in the open and you didn't put any bowls over it, nases kimedura, it becomes like one big bonfire. Va'afilu kener echad ina nechsheves. It doesn't even count for one lamp, because bonfires don't work for the Chanukah lights. You have to have small candles. Now the truth is, this picture may not be so accurate, because the Rambam is talking about a case where you put wicks on the edge of the candle, and that's how when you put a bowl over it, the wicks that were all at the edges would kind of be sticking out on their own. In such a case, it would seem like no matter what, it wouldn't work.
But those look like individual.
They look like individual, but they're actually one, they're just all wicks coming out of a massive candle.
Yeah.
They're making their own little pool of wax around each other, but that's not because they're separate.
When
It's
I
because
looked at
they're all together.
each individual in the bowl.
Oh, I see. No, it's all together in one big bowl. Yeah. So if you have a vessel over it, good. If not, no good. Halacha hey, ein madlikin neiris Chanukah kaidem shetishka achama. We do not light the Chanukah lights before sunset. Ela im shkiyasa. We light it together with the sunset. As the commentaries explain, right after the sun dips below the horizon, that's the ideal time for lighting Chanukah lights. Loi me'acharin v'loi makdimin. According to the Rambam, that you have to catch that exact moment. You can't light later, you can't light earlier. Of course, there's one. So there's one night of Chanukah that we for sure light later, which is Saturday night. After Shabbat, we have to wait till it gets dark. And on Friday night, you cannot light after sunset because it's Shabbat, so we light before sunset.
And that's
But
obvious.
that's obvious. The rest of the days, the Shulchan Aruch says that ideally you should light at this time, right after sunset.
No,
but if you missed
stuck
it,
in traffic,
stuck in traffic, then you light afterwards.
so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. According to the halacha today, you light later. It's okay. But ideally, if you could, light by sunset. Like for example, when we were in yeshiva, our regular schedule of school would end 15 minutes before sunset. We would do mincha, and everybody would run out to light the candles right after sunset, and then we'd go out on mitzvahim to help other Jews do the mitzvah. But this is the ideal time. The ideal time is not before sunset, just after sunset. Shachach oy hezid v'lo yhidlik im shkias hachama. According to the Rambam, if you forget or on purpose, you didn't light the candles with the sunset. Madlik v'hoylech ad shetichle regel min hashuk. You can keep on lighting candles so long as there's people in the marketplace. So long as there's people still walking around. The kama who's manzeh, how much is that window of time? K'may chatzi shah or yoser, about half an hour after sunset or more. Avar's manzeh einay madlik. If that time passes, according to the Rambam, you should no longer light the menorah. Today, we absolutely do. If you miss sunset and you miss even half an hour, you light by night. Also, there's Pesumei Nisa, so long as somebody in the household is awake, or if you're living alone, then you're fine. Some say that after midnight you shouldn't light, but the truth is, if you get stuck even then, you're probably better to light. V'tzarich sheyitin shemen baner. You need to put enough oil in the lamp, kedei shetia doilekes v'hoileches ad shetichle regel min hashuk, that it should be able to burn and stay burning until that time, at half an hour after sunset, when people stop walking around in the marketplace. So you light the menorah by sunset, but you have to have enough oil in there, or if you're using a candle, it has to be big enough to last for a half an hour. Hidlika v'kavsa. If you lit the menorah and then it went out, got extinguished, ein zakuk lahadlika pa'am acheres. You don't have to relight it. As long as you had enough oil in there to begin with, and it could have potentially burned till the proper time, even if it didn't, it's okay. Nishara de'lekes achar shekol saregel min hashuk. If you had so much oil that it stayed burning even after a half an hour, after people stopped walking around in the marketplace. Imratza lechaboisa oy lesalka oisa. If at that point you want to put it out or you want to move it around, that's okay. During the half an hour, you shouldn't move the Chanukah lights. But if afterwards you want to, if it already burned for the half an hour, it's okay. By the way, on Friday night...
And the halacha today?
Yeah, that's the halacha. Yeah. On Friday night, when you light before sunset, you have to make sure that you have more oil than usual or longer candles than usual so it can last for half an hour after dark. Because you're only lighting it before sunset, you have to make sure of that. Says the Rambam, halacha vav, kol hashmanim v'chol hapsilos ksheirish l'ner Chanukah. Unlike when it comes to Shabbat candles, you have to have good oil and good wicks. Wick that will attract the oil and it will burn calmly. On Chanukah, all oils, all wicks are kosher. Even if the oil doesn't catch nicely into the wick, or even if the fire doesn't catch well to the wicks, it's okay. Even on Friday night, during Chanukah, mutar lahadlik hashmanim v'hapsilos she'asur lahadlik b'ner Shabbos. You can use for your menorah, for your Chanukah lights, you can use wicks and oil that are not kosher for Shabbos lights. Of course, the Shabbos lights themselves have to be kosher, but the Chanukah lights on the Friday night of Chanukah could be made out of materials that are not kosher for Shabbos lights. Because it's a question of purpose. The Shabbos lamps are meant to increase, as we're going to see actually today, peace in the home. They're meant to add to the atmosphere of the home. If they're not burning properly, they're going to go against their purpose. But Chanukah candles aren't meant for your own particular use. You're actually not allowed to use them for your own individual needs, whether Shabbat or weekday. So it doesn't matter what kind of material they are. Even to check money or to count money by the light of the Chanukah candles is not allowed. That's why in many communities we have a shamash, a little candle next to the Chanukah lights. That's the light that we can use to differentiate it from the Chanukah lamps, which the Chanukah lamps we cannot use. So since you cannot use it, doesn't matter what material it's made out of when it comes to Shabbat. Halacha Zayin. Ner Chanukah mitzvah lahanichai al Pesach beisay mibachutz. The Chanukah lamp, the mitzvah, the ideal mitzvah is to place it at the entrance to your house, on the outside, batefach hasamuch la Pesach, in the handbreadth. Tefach is a handbreadth, about 3-4 inches. Closest to the doorway, al smoil hanichnas labayis, to the left of the person entering the house. So if you're walking into the home and you have a doorway, the left side. Kedei shetiya mezuzah biyamin v'ner Chanukah mismoil. So you should be surrounded by mitzvot. The mezuzah on the right side, Chanukah on the left. So you have a picture here to show you what it means left. In this picture, if the doorway is thin, you don't put the Chanukah lamps, according to the Rambam, in the doorway. You put it to the left of the doorway. So when you're walking in, you have mezuzah to the right, menorah to the left. I actually showed you a picture of this yesterday. See if I can bring it up. This guy in Jerusalem lighting his menorah. You see, this is his doorway, and he's putting his menorah to the left of the doorway. The mezuzah is here on this side, mezuzah is here to the left. Now, if the doorway was very thick, then many commentators understand that you should actually put the menorah in the doorway. But tefach hasamuch lapetach means the outermost handbreadth. But if it's a thick doorway, you put the menorah at the end of the doorway, but it's in the actual doorway. As a matter of fact, even today, when most Jews light the menorah in their homes, when we still put it by a doorway, and there you should put it in the doorway. But at the entrance, you put it on the outside. So you have the menorah on the left side, mezuzah on the right side, you're surrounded by mitzvahs. What if you have no mezuzah on your door? If you're a Jew, it's impossible. Unfortunately, some Jews don't have a mezuzah yet. Then what you should do is you light the menorah on the right side, not on the left. Says the Rambam further, if you lived on a second story, you should put it in the window closest to the public area where everybody can see it. But if the Chanukah lamp is going to be at a height of higher than 20 amot, about 30 to 40 feet, you haven't done anything because it isn't recognizable. That's why when you do public menorah lightings, the menorah has to be a certain height. It can't be too tall. Otherwise, the eye loses track of it. Or if you're in a home and you put your menorah too high, it's no good. There's an argument among the contemporary commentaries. Today we have such tall buildings, high risers and apartment buildings. If putting a menorah in your window, if you're on the 16th floor, is that called higher than 20 amot? Because to you, in your home, it's the proper height. It's just to the outside, it's not the proper height. So most commentaries say that it's permitted. That's fine. Because the 20 amot thing is for a person on the ground level, shouldn't have his menorah higher than 20 amot. But for you, where you are, you're putting it in a good height.
And if you do have a home of, let's say, 3 floors, which is...
Yeah, you have to let it on the lowest, on the ground. Yeah. The Rambam doesn't mention a minimum height here, but the common custom is to do it between 3 and 10 tefachim from the ground. But 9 to 30 inches from the ground. So it should be kind of low. Halacha ches. Bimei hasakana, in times of danger, there was Jewish persecution or whatever reasons. Maniach adam ner Chanukah b'seich beisei mibifnim. The person should put the Chanukah lamps inside his house, on the inside, not on the outside by the doorway or by the window. Even if you put it on your table, it's okay. Once you go inside, you don't have to put it by a doorway. I said before that in Shulchan Aruch it says, the Rambam writes, that you should still put it in a doorway. Even if you're doing it in your home, and that's the custom today, especially in Chabad communities. We put the menorah inside the house, in the doorway. If you light the Chanukah lamps in your house, you have to have another lamp next to the menorah to be able to use the light. Otherwise, you can't use the Chanukah lights. If you had a bonfire in your home for heat or whatever, no need for another candle because you'll just use the bonfire for any light purposes. If you're an important person, you don't usually go over to the bonfire and use the fire. You do need another lamp next to the Chanukah lamp. As I mentioned before, we have the shamash that serves that purpose. Tes. If a Chanukah lamp was lit by a deaf mute, or by a mentally unstable person, or by a child, or by an idol-worshipping Gentile, loy osa klum, doesn't count for anything. Even if he does it for a Jew, doesn't count for anything. Ad she'adlikenu mishu chayav ba'adlaka. It has to be lit by somebody who himself is obligated to light the Chanukah lamps. No, not if he wants to fulfill the mitzvah for somebody else. He can do it for himself, it's okay. But if he's the leader of a household, let's say, his lighting will not count for everybody else. It has to get somebody else, his son or his wife or someone else. What if you lit the menorah inside your house, and then you carry the menorah as it's lit to the outside and put it by your doorway? Doesn't count for anything. Until you light it in its place. This is the principle that the Rambam will say in the end of this halacha, hadlaka oisa mitzvah. It's the kindling which does the mitzvah. So you have to kindle the menorah in the proper place. What if the guy was in the mood of being a wax statue? So he decides he's going to hold his menorah all night, or at least for the half an hour, in place and stand there. Lo yasa klum. You haven't done anything. Anybody watching you will just say, you're not standing there for menorah, you're there just to, something you need. You need some light. So you're standing there. It has to be put down on something. If you have a lantern that was lit all day, after Shabbat, that was the typical time. You have a lantern for the whole Shabbat, let's say. So after Shabbos, you have to first put it out, then make a blessing, then light it again for Chanukah purposes. Because the kindling is the mitzvah and not the placement. If the placement were the mitzvah and you have a lantern going all Shabbat, just leave it there. Make a blessing on it. No, you have to light it for the mitzvah. Therefore, you have to put it out and light it again. One is allowed to light one Chanukah lamp directly from another Chanukah lamp. There's a debate if you can take a match and put it from one Chanukah lamp to the other, or take the shamish, one to the other. We don't do that practically. If you need to, you can light one Chanukah lamp from the other. Otherwise, any other lamp, you don't light from the Chanukah lamp. Light it from a match, light it from another source of fire, not from the Chanukah lamps.
The shamish goes out. Let's say you're on the third or fourth day.
Mm-hmm.
Candle 2 you lighting, but the second candle you're lighting and the shamish goes out.
Yeah.
You have to
relight. Exactly. You cannot light it from some. Go right. Exactly. Halacha yud. Chatzer sheyesh la shnei psachim b'shtei ruches. If a courtyard has 2 entrances on both directions, tzricha shtei neiros. The person living there has to light 2 menorahs. Shema yomru ha'ivrim beruach zu lahiniach ner Chanukah. Because somebody passing on that side, if the menorah is only on the other side, he'll say, "Oh, this is my friend, the Jewish guy. He doesn't light menorah. What is this? He's going to suspect him of doing wrong. But if both openings were on the same direction, madlik be'echad me'an, all you have to do is light in one of them. Of course, the commentaries say that if he's lighting at home, not in the doorway, then there's no worry of suspicion. You only have to light once, because anyways, everyone knows you're not putting it by your doorway. But if people were still putting it by the doorway, you have to put it in both doorways. Halacha Yud Aleph, Oirach, Shemadlikin Olav B'Soich Beisai. A guest, somebody is staying in a different city or a different place, and back home, they are lighting the menorah in his house. There's no need to light menorah for him here where he's staying.
Even if he didn't bless?
Even if he didn't bless. If someone else is making a blessing for him in his home, then it's okay. But if he has no other home, he's staying here, this is his home. There is no other home where someone's lighting candles for him. You must light either himself or for him in the place where he's staying. He has to pay for the expenses of the oil or whatever they're using to light the menorah. If where he's staying, he has his own quarters, his own living space, you aren't staying literally in someone else's bedroom. You're in a little back house, let's say. Even if back home someone is lighting the menorah for you, you have to light in your own living quarters here, because the people that are passing by are going to think that you're not lighting the menorah. Shulchan Aruch says this applies to any separate entrance. Even if you're staying in somebody's actual home, but you have a separate entrance, you must light menorah yourself. Today, the commentaries say that guests, no matter what kind of situation you're in, you always light where you are. No matter if you have a home, don't have a home, preferable, light menorah where you are, so you fulfill your own obligation. Halacha Yud Beis. Mitzvahs ner Chanukah, mitzvah chaviva hi ad ma'od. The mitzvah of lighting the Chanukah lamps is a very, very precious mitzvah. V'tzarich adam lihizayir ba. And a person must be very careful to fulfill it. Kedei lo hidiya hanes, to publicize the miracle, ulo haisif b'shvach hakel v'hidoya loi, and to increase the praise and the thanks to Hashem, ala nisim sha'asa lanu, for the miracles which He did for us. To the point, afilu ein le ma yoichal, ela min tzedakah, even if you have nothing to eat, you're only being supported by tzedakah, shoyel oy meicher ksusa, you must borrow money or sell the clothes on your back, v'lekeach shemen v'neres umadlik, to buy oil and lamps and light the menorah. That's how important Chanukah lights is. And now the Rambam talks about some cases where there's a question of what mitzvah comes first. Says the Rambam halacha Yud Gimel. Harei she'ein le'ela pruta achas. Let's say a person only has one coin. And one coin is worth about 5 to 10 cents today. Tells you how much inflation brought the price up of things. He only has one coin. Ulefan of kiddush hayom, the hadlakas ner Chanukah. He has an option. Should I buy wine for kiddush, or should I buy lamps, oil to light the menorah? Makdim liknes shemen lahadlik ner Chanukah ala yayin lekiddush hayom. The person should put preference. First go and buy oil to light the Chanukah lamp over having wine for kiddush. Hoyelu shneim midivrei seifrim, since they're both rabbinical mitzvahs, because biblically all you have to do is just say the kiddush, or over bread you can do it too. So since having wine and having Chanukah lights is both rabbinic, mutav lahakdim ner Chanukah sheyesh b'zikaron hanes, it's best to put the Chanukah candles first, in which you actually remember the miracle and fulfill that special mitzvah. Yudalid, another question. Haya lefan of ner beisai the ner Chanukah. Again, Friday night, you have only enough money to buy one. You need to buy candles for your home, Shabbat candles, or Chanukah candles. Or ner beisai the kiddush hayom, or forget Chanukah. You have your Shabbat candles and kiddush wine. In both cases, says the Rambam, ner beisai kaidem, the Shabbat candles in your home are first, mishum shloim beisai, because of peace in the home. Now this is a very fascinating halakha. The Rebbe spent considerable time explaining it. The bottom line is, there's a big question the commentaries ask. Why is the Rambam putting this law in the laws of Chanukah? This belongs in the laws of Shabbat. Shabbat candles before Chanukah, Shabbat candles before Kiddush. And even though the only time it could happen is on Shabbat of Chanukah, but still, it's more of a Shabbat spirited law. In Shulchan Aruch, it actually is in Hilchot Shabbat. And the Rebbe explains that the actual obligation to light Shabbat candles doesn't have to do with peace in the home. It's part of the pleasure, the oneg of Shabbat. Here, the Rambam is telling us a new law. Shabbat comes before Chanukah candles not because of the obligation of Shabbat candles, but because of the specialty of Shabbat candles, the peace which they bring. And because they bring peace, when you do that mitzvah, you're not actually pushing away the mitzvah of Chanukah. Chanukah becomes included in the mitzvah of Shabbat candles which provide peace. And the Rambam demonstrates this with another mitzvah in the Torah. Shaharei Hashem nimchak lasos shalom ben ish leishtoi. Because we find that the name of God would be erased to make peace between man and woman. So you read it simply, it's like a proof. Yeah, look how great peace is. Peace is so great that you would erase Hashem's name for it. So certainly over here, you should put peace before Chanukah. But the question would be, if a family is at stake, if a relationship is at stake, if a marriage needs to be saved, I get it, you erase God's name. But for Chanukah versus Kiddush, for Chanukah versus Shabbos candles, I should put Chanukah first because of that. So the Rebbe explains that the message here is much deeper. We know we can't erase Hashem's name. And yet, we'll go ahead, write Hashem's name with the plan to erase it just to help the peace. Which means that if you're doing something for the sake of shalom, it's impossible that it's going to have a negative effect on anything else. It doesn't push over or override anything. When peace is your objective, everything is included in it. And the Rambam goes even further and tells us, Godel HaShalom, Shekol HaTorah Nitna Lasis Shalom Ba'olam. Peace is so great that the entire Torah was given to make peace in the world. Shenemar, as it says, Drachei Darchei Noyam, V'chol Nesivos HaShalom. The ways of Torah are ways of pleasantness, and all of its paths are peace. So if every mitzvah in the Torah is peace, that means even Chanukah candles, in a way, have a peaceful element to them. And so by putting Shabbat candles, whose point is peace, over Chanukah, you're actually enhancing part of the peace of Chanukah. And so it becomes included in one thing. There's no pushing away, there's no overriding. As a matter of fact, there's just more harmony by putting Shabbat candles first. And the Rambam puts it in the laws of Chanukah because that's how he shows us that the point of peace is to bring everything together. Chanukah is about making peace in the world, lighting up the world. Evil forces, bringing them closer to holiness. By putting Shabbat candles first, you put peace first, and the mission of Chanukah is also accomplished. And it's fascinating that with this, the Rambam closes the entire third book of the Rambam. We began with the laws of Shabbat. We finish with the laws relating to Shabbat. Also, the whole laws of Chanukah in the Talmud are in tractate Shabbat. So they're very much connected, the beginning and the end. And with that, Brich Rachamana Desayan, blessed be the merciful and grant us assistance. And we conclude the third book of the Rambam. Nigmar Sefer Shlishi, V'hu Sefer Zmanim. We conclude the book of Times. Hilchos of Eser, Uprak of Shiva V'tishim. There were 10 sets of laws with 97 chapters total. Over 3 months we've been doing this. Hilchos Shabbos Shloshim Prakim, the laws of Shabbat, 30 chapters. Hilchos Eruvin Shmeina Prakim, the laws of the Eruv, 8 chapters. Hilchos Shvisas Aser, the laws of resting on Yom Kippur, Shloisha Prakim, 3 chapters. Hilchos Shvisas Yom Tov, Shmeina Prakim, the laws of resting on holidays, 8 chapters. Hilchos Chametz Umatzah, Shmeina Prakim, the laws of Chametz and Matzah, Pesach, 8 chapters. Hilchos Shofar V'Sukkah V'Lulav, Shmeina Prakim, Shofar, Sukkah, Lulav, also 8 chapters. Hilchos Shkalim, laws of the half-shekel coin, Arba Prakim, 4 chapters. Hilchos Kiddush HaChodesh, Tisha Asar Prakim, laws of sanctifying the new month, the calendar, 19 chapters. Hilchos Tanya is Chamisha Prakim, laws of public fasts, 5 chapters. Hilchos Megillah v'Chanukah, Arba Prakim, the laws of Megillah and Chanukah, 4 chapters. Baruch Hashem Lo'olam, Amen v'Amen. Mazel Tov for concluding the third book of the Rambam.